Hello, for our group final project, we chose option two, and we selected a multinational firm by the name of Nike. We compiled research on their M&E's HRM relations in the US as well as China, and we're going to be discussing through the IHRM practices of the home offices as well as the practice in the other country.
Yeah, so hopping right into it, giving a little bit of background on Nike Human Resource Management. The main goals of the company are innovation, product quality, and improved labor conditions. And Nike as a whole believes that if they meet these three main goals, they'll increase productivity within their organization. Um, as a company, Nike believes that human resources are its backbone. And so they design policies that will be in line with the belief of cultural diversity. And I think that we'll hopefully be able to see this throughout the presentation, how Nike HRM believes that cultural diversity is essential to its business. And something important to note is that Nike does not directly operate its international factories. Instead, it places quality control and compliance employees within the factories. So it's important to note that Nike is not necessarily directly controlling these places, and so we want to dive into how Nike can influence and maintain its culture, even if it doesn't have um, direct influence on these employees. And some of the global challenges that Nike faces include competition from the industry players within specific countries and the need for multicultural and cross-cultural diversity as an organization because they have so much um, market share within a lot of different countries, and so they want to make sure that they're including the people in those host countries in their business.
In order for us to effectively analyze the HRM practices in China and America, it's important to take a more holistic view and just, do an analysis on how the countries are different. So I jumped on Hofstede Insights and looked at how the 6 factors of power difference or power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence differ between the countries. So you can see just by looking at this graph that there are distinct differences in power distance, individualism, long-term orientation, and indulgence. And there are similar scores in masculinity and uncertainty avoidance. So this means that China and America are more, they're more different than they are similar. And this will have distinct implications for how, HRM, human resource managers interact when issues arise in the workforce.
With regards to the business culture in China, there's a very specific mindset and behavior that they follow, and it revolves heavily around individuals and businesses present themselves. So when they enter a meeting, preparation is key. They can't be fumbling around with their information. They need to know exactly what they want and how to get it. Also, they like to engage in small talk at the beginning of the meeting, and this establishes a rapport. You can't just go in and try and boss your way like people do in the United States. Also, they must maintain composure and constrain their emotion in meetings. They need to act serious. This all stems from the cultural characteristics of China. Like we said, they are a collectivist culture, so citizens act on group ideals and needs. Also, they're a masculine society. They're very success-oriented, and employees will sacrifice family time for work. It's just what they do. Also, they're very long-term oriented, and they have low indulgence scores. So like I said, self-restraint and discipline are necessary.
So the business culture in America, the mindset and behavior. So small talk is key in America, which is pretty similar to China in this regard. And engaging in like solid small talk can make a strong and lasting impression on some American colleagues. Effective communication is direct and to the point. So basically there's no beating around the bush in America because Americans value their time. And typically it's less formal and less hierarchical in company structure, and they often assume a more relaxed approach. Punctuality and participation are also key principles during meetings, so try not to be late to appointments. And going into cultural characteristics, America is an individualistic culture, which means it's a loosely knit society where it's pretty much on the individual to take care of themselves, and others may be reluctant to help people who might be falling behind. Similar to China, it is also a masculine society. Long-term orientation is key. Americans make long-term goals of success, and they are certainly visionaries. And it is a relatively indulgent culture. Many Americans assume that work hard, play hard mindset.
Yeah, so for our presentation, we wanted to do a little bit of a role play. Basically what happened is we have an HR complaint that's filed in the US and in China. We have a stockroom employee that's found stealing in order to feed his family. So obviously it's a pretty complex situation. And kind of the central question that we want to address is, how is this complaint addressed in these vastly different cultures?
All right, US role play. Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
So,
Charles.
Dom's gonna be the manager, and I'm gonna be the employee.
Yes. Hey, Charles, what are you doing with those shoes?
I don't know. I'm sorry, sir.
Are you really stealing from this store?
Well, yeah, I am.
That is unacceptable behavior, and you know that.
I have my reasons.
What could they possibly be?
I work 40 hours a week, and I'm still not getting by.
How will stealing shoes help with that?
Well, I've been stealing shoes and selling them online in order to feed my family. In all honesty, I have missed dinner the last 3 nights just so my kids can eat.
I understand your issue, but you know there are better ways to go about this, don't you?
Well, I was desperate. It was really just an impulse decision.
I give out opinion surveys monthly, and you've never hinted at this issue in any of them.
I understand, but
You could have filed a formal complaint about your issue as well. Anything is better than stealing.
okay.
Regardless, you know that your pay is based off your achievements, and you don't have many. And now, after catching you steal inventory, I'm sorry that I have to let you go.
But sir, you gotta cut me some slack.
We have formal rules for our employees that you have broken. There's a zero tolerance policy for this behavior. I'm sorry.
That is our role play.
Okay, so for the role play now in China, the HRM approach, I'm going to be the manager and Frankie will be the employee. Frank, welcome in today. We're doing this meeting based on a complaint I received. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, sir. So I was caught stealing shoes from the stockroom. My family, we've fallen on some tough times because of COVID, and I have some kids. I have a wife, and we haven't been able to put food on the table. So because of these tough times, I had to steal shoes from the stockroom and sell them so that I could put some food on the table for my family.
Well, I hear you on that, and times are tough, but I will say I'm very disappointed in your actions. You've been here for a long time, I think over 8 years, correct? Yeah, so I'm
Yes,
just very
sir.
disappointed in what you do and because that kind of slanders the Nike brand and also, put shame on our department. So there are so many other things that you could have done. You could have ordered a meeting to talk about a raise or to address these difficulties that you're going through. Why didn't you do that?
I honestly didn't think about that, sir.
Okay.
It was pretty juvenile and immature of me to do that. I definitely should have talked to
Okay,
you
well, I
about that.
appreciate that. Well, since times are irregular, and you've been here a long time, you're a good employee, you've been a loyal employee, and Nike is a compassionate, understanding company. So here's how we're going to move forward. Instead of having, regular HR meetings with me to meet and monitor you, I'm going to have you go back to work, go to your day-to-day, but you're going to report to your manager every other 2 days and give him a report of what you're doing and how you're bettering yourself. And then I'll meet with him. How does that sounds good?
Sounds good. Thank you,
Thank you.
boss.
So as we can see, in the US, the employee was fired, but in China, the employee was reprimanded, but received more guidance and they'll have the ability to kind of check in with their manager on a more regular basis. So I think that's a very important distinction to make. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the culture and the fact that I think it's kind of a collectivist culture in China, and people want to look out for each other, especially during times of need, versus in the US, where it's a little bit more individualistic and it's kind of every man for himself. And so I think we can see those distinctions. We're going to hop back into our presentation now. Right.
Yeah, so getting back to the US HRM approach, we're probably pretty familiar with it at this point, but there's a high degree of stress on formalization of the processes. So systematic process and procedures are explicitly stated with certain benchmarks. So a lot of times higher ups will have certain benchmarks that they want their employees to meet throughout the quarter or the year or whatever the time period is. Another approach is having high level of communication. So there's a lot of staff feedback sessions and annual staff opinion surveys. So it gives the employees a chance to give their input on how the company is doing and how they're being treated. As well as the US is very emphasized in achievement-oriented success. So performance management and reward systems are linked individually. And so you get performance bonuses that are individual and not as much group emphasized.
Yeah, so for the HR approach in China, as you can see from the role play, I ended up not firing my associate. And that's because in China, they're for sure more success oriented, business culture, everything is just moving a little faster. China deals for like almost 1/3 of the production for global production. So we, as you can see in the role play, we valued more that our employee went back to work rather than firing him, because that's what we deem more necessary. And so as far as culture, emphasis on respect for age and authority, that's just respect your elders in more the hierarchical setting. Recruitment and selection methods such as one-to-one interviews, application references are commonly used in the interview process. So although we didn't go into that in the role play, that is the process that we go through when we hire employees. Training and development, value vocational and education training, emphasis on offsite job training. So that's where the decision to put our employee back into work and have him report to his manager kind of touches on that, where we valued that he went back to work more than going through the process of firing him. And then again, with performance reviews, we look for, benefit both the organization and the employee. And we thought that having him go back to work was both mutually beneficial for Nike and the employee.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation on the Nike HRM approach in the US and China. Hope everyone has a good day and good luck on finals.